Hello, everyone. This is Rick with the Cyber Pro podcast. 5 questions in about 9 minutes because hackers never sleep. I want to make sure that everyone understands today we are honored to have Josh on this podcast. Josh, let's kick it off right away with a lot of energy for you because I'm super excited. Look at everything that we have going on right now. Who are you? What do you do?
Hey, so first of all, thanks for having me on the podcast. I'm super excited about this. My name is Josh Goodell. I've got broadband technology for AT&T, and really I'm focused on our mass market. So think of our consumer customers and our small business customers. And when I think about technology, really, if you can visualize what's in a customer's home or in a small business, I've got responsibility for all of that, from the hardware to the software, to the cloud-based orchestration, to the security solutions, to the application that's used to manage all of it. So from delivery to development to lifecycle, I've got all of that for AT&T. Prior to this role, just a little bit of history, I spent a lot of time in the enterprise product space. So I'm now in the consumer space. I spent many years on the enterprise space and really led a product organization that delivered enterprise edge capabilities. And one of the examples of those types of services was launching our first software-defined wide area network technologies. So technologies like SD-WAN, which was really fascinating because I started to see how networking and security come together. It's almost like peanut butter and jelly, right? These things are just absolutely intertwined together. So that's a little bit about what I do today and a little bit about, my history over the last few years.
Now, Josh, if I'm correct, you've been with AT&T for over 20 years. Is that correct?
Well, we don't talk about the number of years. I've been seasoned. I'm still young and carnivorous. Yes, I've been around the block once or twice. Yeah, I've done a few different things. As I mentioned, over the last several years, it's really been developing products in very, interesting parts of the business. By the way, it's fascinating to be focused more on the consumer side, having been in the enterprise side. There's so many commonalities, but a lot of differences as well. But in addition to that, I've run large operations. I've run call center organizations. I've done strategy work. I've actually managed the folks that go out and build and maintain and repair the network. So I've done a little bit of everything in the time. I won't quote years. I'm seasoned.
I love it. I love it. So why do you love being in the technology space? I mean, you've touched different technologies through your career, but why do you love being in this space?
So I think it really comes down to delivering real, tangible value for customers. I mean, at the core of what we do as a business with AT&T, it's all about creating connections. It's about enabling connections. And if you think about security, I mean, security is completely interwoven within all of that. And if you think about what's important to customers, it's top of mind. And again, I shared with you my experience both in doing enterprise work and consumer work, because this is one of the things I find really fascinating. With the enterprise customers, they've been very aware of the need to secure their networks for years. This is not new on the enterprise side. What's fascinating is starting to see how our consumer customers are finding it really important as well. And when we look at relative importance as an overall buying driver, security used to be not that important, candidly, to our consumer customers, but it is rising up and it's now like one of the top 5 items. So I think one of the things that is super interesting is just doing relevant work to, protect our customers. And, if you think about our consumer customers, the other thing that's super interesting is they define security differently today than they did 5 years ago. 5 years ago, it may have been, hey, I want to, protect my laptop from a virus. Today it's, I want to do that, but also, I want to be able to control the privacy of my identity. I want to be able to control the amount of information that, my kids can see on their iPad. Layer on top of that, you think about what's in the home of these consumers, everything's connected. So the threat vectors are coming all over the place, whether it's a connected refrigerator, whether it's a connected iPad, whether it's a phone, whether it's a doorbell. So it's a super relevant space, and our consumer customers understand that. They just don't know what to do about it, right? Which is where we come in. And I think it's one of the things that is really important to keep it simple, but do the hard work behind the scenes, be the expert, and protect them and protect their devices and protect their home. So anyway, long answer, but it's a fascinating space. And I think it's a super relevant space right now.
I'm gonna go off script just a little bit, because I'd be curious to hear what you guys recommend for your consumer customers. One or two ideas that just can take them to the next level of their own personal security.
So first of all, I appreciate you going off script. Let's keep it interesting here. So I think, again, keeping it really simple. I don't think that a customer should have to be the expert. That's why they come to companies like AT&T. So the first thing is just understand, in my world is broadband. So understand if your provider, now I'd love for all of our listeners to be AT&T broadband customers, but if you're not, understand what your provider can deliver, and you should use their capability as one of your buying decisions. So that's one thing. And if you choose the right provider, I think you'll be in a good position. The other thing that I think that's important is that customers should think about not just, how are they protecting themselves in the home, but also when they leave the home, how are they protected? Because the reality is we all are in the home at certain times, and then we're at work at certain times, and then we're on the go outside of the home. So it's important not just to have a provider that can protect you in the home, but one that has a consistent security position, whether it's the broadband connection or the mobility connection. It shouldn't matter. The customer shouldn't have to care. So I'd say one thing is do your homework, find a company that really buys in, find a company that's leaning in, and find one that can give you a consistent, secured connection regardless of where you are.
That's an amazing answer. And I'm going to stay off script just because I'm curious. The more you talk about the consumer security space, I've been in the enterprise space for a while, and I'm always stifled by how slow it moves, or how they want to add technology and instead of dealing with the human factor. And so my question is, how can the consumer resources that you guys are providing make our staff members just that much smarter when it comes to the enterprise security? Is that something you guys are thinking about?
Well, I'll tell you, there are a few different things that I've learned making the move from enterprise to consumer. One is the dynamics associated with managing a massively scaled business. In the consumer space, it's 14, 15 million homes. I'm currently protecting over 30 million devices. I'm blocking 300 million threats, in a matter of a month or two. So the scale is very, very, just because it's so distributed. But the other thing, and I think this gets at your point, is in the consumer space, simplicity is king. You've got to keep it super, super simple. And the environment's dynamic. I mean, we can talk about how quickly things are changing as the threat vectors are changing all the time. Technology is changing, and you having, being in the enterprise space, you see it. There are all kinds of interesting technology evolutions, whether it's 5G, whether it's a migration of workloads towards the edge of networks, which is driving edge compute capabilities, distributed, connected, IoT devices. All these things are happening. It's confusing for the average consumer. And so what we try to do is manage that complexity behind the scenes and make it super easy. And we bring that to life through, the I mentioned that one of the things I've got is our application. And so if you were to go into our application, it's called Smart Home Manager. If you're an AT&T customer, you go download it. You'll see that, first of all, you can get our internet security. If you're a fiber customer, it actually comes with the broadband, which is awesome. When you're in the app, it'll tell you when we've blocked a threat. And, if you log into the app, it'll tell you that. You don't need to manage it. We will manage it for you. And by the way, that's one of the interesting dynamics, is us trying to figure out how much do we expose versus just do all the hard work behind the scenes. I lean more towards just keep it simple. And so I think on the enterprise side, customers want that simplicity as well. It's just not as pronounced as I see on the consumer side. And I think that that's something we got to, as security professionals, we have to find ways to keep it simple and manage all that complexity behind the scenes.
I love the idea of keeping it simple. I mean, I was in the military and we called it KISS. There's an extra word at the end there, but we'll leave that one out as well. So Josh, you've shared tons of really good insight, but I'd love to hear what piece of insight you want to share with the community.
So one of the things that I talked about when I was articulating our vision for securing connections, again, it's not about broadband, it's not about mobility, it's about securing connections. The message I would say is we need to take a holistic view. And in AT&T, we call this active armor. And active armor is an umbrella. Again, whether you're in the home or you're on the go, it's all about delivering consistent capabilities that protect our customers. And I think it's important for us as professionals to think about the challenge of security, but do it in a holistic way. It's not about individual perimeters. It's about holistic, secure positions across any access technology. And I think if we do that, we'll move the ball forward in a really, really big way.
That's awesome. So here's the fun question. Favorite piece of retro technology that makes you smile?
Does it have to be security related?
Not at all.
Okay, so I need to fully acknowledge that I'm somewhat of a adrenaline junkie. I remember back in high school, now I am aging myself, by the way. You asked me how long I've been with AT&T. I'm about to age myself here. I remember back in high school, tapping into that need for that adrenaline pump through mountain biking. And back in the day, this was the first generation of mountain bikes. So that retro technology was the first generation of mountain bikes. So if you're a mountain biker, you know about the time frame that I'm talking about. But if you think back to that time frame, these were glorified beach cruisers, basically, right? And you would cannonball down a mountain on a glorified beach cruiser, and that would put some hair on your chest. And then you got the first generation of full suspension. And now today, you got bikes made out of carbon fiber with full suspension. I was reading an article, there's actually suspension now that will adjust 200 times a second based on the terrain that you're on. And it's like, oh my God, how far we have come. But when I'm walking down the street and I see that first generation full suspension bike, I smile, because it's amazing how far we've come. And, it's a lot of fun.
It's epic having you on. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure.
You did it. You made it to the end. Thanks for watching the Cyber Pro podcast. Check us out for more content.